Episode 134. Ball joint versus kingpin. I got fired from my job at the ice cream shop. Yeah, I just couldn't do Sundays. Hello and welcome to the 10 Minute Off-Road Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki G. I'm here to entertain and inform your ear holes with everything off-road for the next 10 minutes or so. Why 10 minutes? Well, that's about how long this cat has to live because he keeps jumping on the keyboard. Cat, I am going to kill you. Alright, so before we get started, I'd like to go over the boilerplate legal mumbo-jumbo, but I don't have to because I have enslaved AI interns. So take it away, enslaved AI interns.
You're listening to the 10 Minute Off-Road Podcast, the podcast for the off-roader with a short attention span. Got something to say? We would love to hear from you. Just contact the 10 Minute Off-Road Podcast at 10minuteoffroad@gmail.com. That's 10minuteoffroad@gmail.com. Or leave a comment on our YouTube channel.
You can listen to the 10 Minute Off-Road Podcast on whatever the hell you're listening to it on now, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Odyssey, Podbean, Pocket Cast, Podchaser, and iHeartRadio, or through our website, 10minuteoffroad.com.
You can follow the 10 Minute Off-Road Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, but never TikTok.
Thank you very much, enslaved AI interns. You're worth every penny. All right, before we get started, I want to talk about some of the Jeep events coming up. But I don't have to because, I've turned that over to enslaved AI interns. So go ahead, enslaved AI interns, tell us what shows are coming up.
Some of the upcoming events for 2026. Western North Carolina Jeep Fest in Maggie Valley, North Carolina, June 5th and 6th. The Bantam Jeep Heritage Festival in Butler, Pennsylvania, June 12th through the 14th. The Southwest Virginia Jeep Invasion in Tazewell, Virginia, July 11th. Toledo Jeep Fest in Toledo, Ohio, August 7th through the 9th. The Great Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, August 20th to the 22nd. Picken Jeep Explosion in Pickens, South Carolina, date to be announced, usually in September. Smoky Mountain Overland Invasion in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, October 23rd. All-Wheel Drive Fest in Uwharrie National Forest, North Carolina. Date to be announced, but usually Halloween weekend.
All right, once again, thank you, enslaved AI interns. All right, so kind of at a loss for something to talk about this week. Nothing's changed. I'm still held up with my ankle. The healing is coming along nicely, and I'm starting to walk a little bit. And I got to tell you, it's very liberating. Hopefully by next week, I'll be out on the trails. I'm trying to plan a trip. Optimistically. I'd like to do a little something before I have to go back to work. And I got to tell you, it's been nice having all this time off work. And it's also been a drag having all this time off work. I didn't realize how bored I would be sitting on a couch watching TV. With that being said, I came across a topic this week with somebody that I haven't talked about in a while, and the fad kind of died away. But I'm talking about kingpin versus ball joints. As you know, since about the 60s, we've had ball joints in our cars. And quite a few years ago, there was a big push. There was a couple of companies a few years ago that made a couple of kits to convert your ball joints to kingpins, and that was the fad. Everybody jumped on it, and I haven't heard too much about it now lately. So dove into it a little bit to check on it, and here's what I came up with. If you don't know what a ball joint is a flexible connector that features a spherical design that allows for multi-directional movement, offering greater articulation for the front wheels. Yeah, and that doesn't sound like anything I would normally say, but I had to look it up, and that's what happened. Yeah, kingpin serves as a pivot point for the steering mechanism in larger vehicles such as trucks and buses, where they're most commonly used. They connect the steering knuckle to the axle and allows the wheels to turn while supporting the vehicle's weight. So what's the main difference between a ball joint and a kingpin? Well, the main difference lies in their design and function. Ball joints being spherical bearings that allow for a range of motion and blah, 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 blah. Well, kingpins are just kind of like a fixed pivot point that primarily provides steering support and rotational movement in heavy-duty vehicles. Okay, so kingpins were in the beginning of the automotive industry. Everything came with a kingpin. Auto manufacturers began shifting to ball joints in the early 50s as a replacement for the kingpin, with the 1952 Lincoln being the early adopter. Boy, that's a tough word to say. And soon became the industry normal. So let's talk about the pros of a ball joint. Ball joint improves steering handling and tire wear and offer greater suspension articulation. With significant innovations like rubber and metal designs, they're cheap, and depending on driving conditions, they can last up to 80 to 1,000 miles. Pros of the kingpins. Kingpins, on the other hand, are built for durability and load bearing. You find them in big heavy-duty trucks. I think Ford Super Duty still uses them. I'm not quite sure on that. I know they did right up until like the 2000s or something. That's how long it's been since I've been to a junkyard looking around. All right, so the cons of the ball joint. Ball joints, their pro is they only last 80,000 to 100,000 miles. And their con is they only last 80 to 100,000 miles. You usually don't know you have a bad ball joint until you get some funky tire wear or a popping noise. And they are kind of tedious to replace. Not hard, not difficult, but just tedious. Okay, the cons of kingpins. Squeaks. If you ever heard an old car turning in a parking lot or something, you hear that squeak. When I was a kid, we used to call it the Ford squeak because it seemed like all Fords made that noise. You still get that noise with a ball joint, but that's when a ball joint wears out, you hear the noise. Kingpins, they just squeak all the time. They cost considerably more. If you want to convert your ball joint axle to a kingpin axle, you're going to expect to spend about $600. Where if you just want to replace your ball joints, a good set of ball joints for the front axle is about $200. And also with the kingpin, you're moving your weak link to the knuckle. If you have ball joints, you might blow out a ball joint on the rocks. And then, you have what you have and you know what to replace. On the kingpin won't break, but the knuckle might. And, knuckles usually cost more than ball joints. Although they're a little easier to replace than a ball joint. But blah, blah, blah. So I digress. And kingpins also, another pro that I miss at the kingpin is if you're going to do a high steering where you're going to have your tie rod on the upper of the knuckle, kingpins might give you more clearance. So now we know all about kingpins and ball joints. In my opinion, I don't think the $600 cost to convert my Dana 30 to a kingpin is worth it. The juice just ain't worth the squeeze. If you're going to go that route, you probably just spend the extra $600 and buy an axle that has a kingpin. Like I said, a lot of Ford Super Duty axles have kingpins in them. All right, so I've babbled on long enough. And until next time, this is Nicky G saying, wheel what you got and be happy. Bam, I did it. Did it all by myself.